Okay, good evening, and thank you all for joining us for tonight's fireside chat. I'm retired Captain Donald Nisbet, call sign Biscuit, and on behalf of the National Naval Officers Association Transition Assistance Team, I'd like to welcome you to this evening's fireside chat. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of hearing from Commander Kevin Elvis Elmore, good friend of mine. We actually spent a little bit of time together a few years ago. But Kevin is a graduate of Auburn University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Aviation Management in 1985. He also attended the United States Naval War College and earned a master's degree in National Security and Strategic Studies in 97. And he's had a distinguished and interesting career. So he started post ROTC reporting to Surface Warfare Officer School in Coronado, California. And upon graduation, he was assigned to the USS Enterprise CVN 65, where he served as Combat Systems Division Officer and completed Westpac carrier transit, first carrier transit through the Suez, Operation El Dorado Canyon, and the U.S. bombing of Libya. And because the life as a SWO wasn't good enough for him, he went through pilot training and in 1987 earned his wings of gold in Corpus Christi, Texas. First Fleet Squadron was Airborne Early Warning Squadron 115 in Atsugi, Japan, where he was the maintenance officer and land signal officer or maintenance division officer. And of course, not content with that, he transitioned into jets, went back to training in Meridian, Mississippi. And out of that, his first squadron was Airborne Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron 6, VQ6, and he served as Detachment Operations Officer and Squadron Maintenance Officer. That's where our paths cross in USS Theodore Roosevelt in 1995 and Air Wing 8. He also was the Dead OIC at VQ5 on board USS Cole Benson. So Elvis left active duty in 1999 to pursue a career with American Airlines, but he remained in the Naval Reserves for a total of 14 years and finally retired from the Navy in 2013 after 28 years of total military service. During his military flying career, Elvis accumulated over 3,500 hours flying and instructing in the E-2C Hawkeye, the S-3B Shadowhawk, S-3B Viking, and also the ES-3 Shadow, and successfully completed over 750 carrier-arrested landings. Currently, Elvis is a international Boeing 787 captain based in Philadelphia, having flown the MD-80, MD-90, Boeing 737, 757, 767, Airbus 319, 320, and 321, all with American Airlines. Currently residing in Winchester, California, Elvis has 2 children and 2 grandchildren. So please help me welcome a true warrior and a good friend, Commander Elvis Elmore.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Gonna bring the energy that Biscuit requested and turn it up a notch. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. National Naval Officers Association has been part of my career since I started back in 1985. In fact, the very warrior gentleman that brought me into the fold is right here, Ernie Taylor. Thank you for your years and years of mentorship. So I'll just start out with my transition story. Obviously, when I just made the decision to leave the Navy, I had done what, 4 combat deployments in the military, and at the time, my kids were young; they were 6 and 4, and I was, to be quite honest, just burnt out going out to sea, and doing deployments. Um, I was kind of put in a fast track to go to, after I finished postgraduate school, I've been selected to be executive officer, commanding officer of a squadron. So they were putting me in that lane to pursue that. And I was looking at least another sea tour as an XOCO, and then another tour as a post command commander. And it was just a little bit too much. So um, I had to decide, what to do. And so basically, I, had a discussion with my wife at the time. Lots of things to consider with 2 small children, mouths to feed. So, financials are a big part of it, and location, not so much for us. We were living in San Diego at the time and pretty happy there, but that wasn't something that was going to anchor us or have a big play in our decision. So basically, what I did was I just decided, I love flying. I love my career, and when you're passionate about a career, you never really, you know, when you love what you do, you never really have to go to work. It's just something you love to do, and I decided to stick with my strengths, play with my strengths, and go with flying airplanes. So once I made that decision to pursue a career in commercial aviation, um, then you start with the networking. And for me, once I decided to go down that commercial aviation path, I started looking at different resources to pursue that path. Um, and something as basic as preparing a resume. Um, Now with LinkedIn and certain counseling services, interview prep services, you know, I always say if you have to spend money to do any of this stuff, it's money well spent, because if you're looking at moving on, to another career, possibly your final resting place as a career, every dime you spend is worth it, in my opinion. So uh, basically, had a professional resume put together. Um, one of my mentors, Frank Shukes, was a captain at American Airlines at the time. He told me, even when you land that dream job and you think you're in the career that you will finally end up in, uh, make sure you keep your resume uh, fresh and up to date. And that couldn't be any closer to the truth, because here I am, started my career at American 1999. So almost 28 years later, when I retire in February, um, guess what? I got to take out that resume again and brush it off and try to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. So uh, definitely that was the first step. And then I watched Will Clark, Captain Clark's webinar a while back on here, and he brought up some good points about networking. So I'll just cover that real quick. 3 levels of networking. There's a tactical, operational, and strategic. And the tactical is your day to day people, people that like uh, Captain Taylor, that brought me into the NNOA organization. People that they're your mentors. You have conversations with them every day. You run ideas by them. Hey, I'm thinking about getting out of the Navy, going into commercial aviation. Maybe some of those people have done what you've done, or they're already in the industry that you're considering going to. Then you have your operational level networking, which is basically you know, these are people that are actively pursuing that transition. People that may still be in the Navy pursuing that transition to commercial aviation, or people that are already in commercial aviation that just did the transition. So those are your go-to folks as far as getting valid information on as to how to help you navigate from one side to the other. And then your strategic, which is basically you trying to find out as much as you can from various people in the different airlines. And in my case, I was kind of torn between whether I wanted to fly commercial passenger aircraft or cargo aircraft. So that strategic level networking was trying to get appointments with people that could give me an educated answer on my questions regarding what was the difference between flying passengers and flying cargo. So really good advice from Will on the networking piece. Also, I'll add the same thing that he said, which is networking is a continuum. It's a constant. You always want to make sure that uh, you're in constant talks with folks. I do a lot of mentoring. I'm also in the hiring department at American Airlines. Uh, I've been basically mentoring my entire career since Ernie taught me how to do it. And you build these relationships across different professions, not just in commercial aviation or, not just aviation, but I've helped people in the medical field and legal fields, and you build these relationships and establish this network, and it's an ongoing piece. Like you don't wait until, hey, I'm getting out, I'm retiring next February on my birthday. Uh, I need to talk to somebody right now. So that networking starts now. For me, it was a year out. I made the decision last February on my birthday. Hey, you need to start um, connecting on the tactical, operational, and strategic level to figure out what you want to do next. And I'm still in that process, trying to figure out if I want to stay, uh, in the flying part of it, or if I want to, actually go sit behind a desk, which doesn't sound appealing to me, but we'll see. The other thing I did was attending a lot of conventions and job fairs, just trying to gather as much information as I could to make the right choice as far as which airline I wanted to go to. And all I can say is do your research. It is really really important to do your research. There's so many different moving parts, dynamic pieces to making that decision. For me, commercial aviation, passenger side, where are the domiciles for that particular uh, airline? What aircraft types do they fly? Where do they fly? What's the corporate culture? Do I fit? Could I go in and fit in this organization and potentially make a difference, make an impact? Uh, Benefits, salary, retirement, those are all things that you need to consider. And it's hard because when you're in the military, you have your active duty 05 over 14 pay. Uh, and 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 then you have all these pays and allowances, and you can get a pretty solid number to come up with. But then in the aviation community, in the commercial airline industry, it's pay by the hour. So there's a lot of consideration you have to put in, research you have to do to figure out what your salary is going to be compared to what you're making in the military. And I grossly underestimated that because I was using, a typical 1 year commercial aviation salary. And I did not consider the introductory salary at the time at American Airlines, which is almost 50% of what I was making as an active duty O4. So that was a big sting. Um, uh, I will tell you also to make sure you consider the benefits as far as the retirement and the medical. Uh, Unfortunately, life happens, and a lot of us, when we're younger, don't we think we're invincible, and we don't consider, well, what happens if I, lose a limb, or don't have the ability to fly anymore. Those are huge considerations. And in my particular case, I was in 2021 diagnosed with large B cell lymphoma. So I ended up having two bouts with lymphoma and cancer. So two-time survivor. Uh, and Fortunately, I chose a company that had great medical benefits. So I didn't have to shoulder any of that financial responsibility, which was quite considerable, considering I was out for about 3 years. And I lost out on about 3 years of pensionable income. Uh, so that's something that's actually factoring into my decision to continue to work after I turned 65. I think had I not had that setback, um, I might have considered just throwing in the towel and maybe doing some consultant work. But because of that setback with my pension, I made the decision to go ahead and consider flying for another 2 years from 65 to 67, kind of bridge the gap between um, when I turned 65 and Social Security collection at 67. So these are all, really important things that you need to uh, put pen to paper, pros and cons, and really deliberate how important these things are to you. Also, because I was getting out in 99, I had only done 14 years on active duty. And I know most of this audience is probably, when they transition, they're transitioning out of a full active duty uh, career. In my case, I still had to consider the reserves. Some people made the decision they were just going to make a clean cut, get out, but I decided to stay in the reserves. So I had to find a company that was user friendly for my military reserve needs. Military reserve policies, how do they allow you to drill, get time off for that? Um, and the last thing for me was, I all my life have been a planner. I always wanted things to kind of fit into a certain sequence. And so I needed my career transition from the military to commercial aviation to be a seamless transition. So, fortunately, and the way I ended up at American Airlines is I had been to uh, all these different conventions, and I'll talk about the different organizations that I attended. But I was able to get an interview with American Airlines before my last deployment, and so where all the other airlines uh, wanted me to call them after I got out of the Navy, American Airlines gave me an interview prior to my last deployment. So I was able to actually uh, do my deployment. And then when I got back, I just gave them a call and said, "Hey, I'm off of active duty," and they gave me a class date. So it was literally the best possible scenario I could have had, given the circumstances. Um, Also in engagement, and I mentioned the networking piece, and part of that networking is becoming part of organizations that resonate with you. I was a part of the organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, NNOA, obviously. Thank you, Ernie. The band, the Black Aviator Network, and RTAG, which has now become a military aviation to transition to commercial aviation organization. All those different organizations helped me gave me the tools to make sure that the transition was pretty smooth for me. Um, Last thing I'll mention is about the transition. Pay attention at TAP. If you're not getting out um, after a full active duty uh, career, TAP, Transition Assistance Program, they covered a lot of stuff, and I was one of those guys in the back of the room, kind of, you know, looking at the ceiling. And when they covered, all the medical record things and GI Bill, I just kind of didn't really pay attention. Well, uh, I can't tell you how important it is to make sure you get a copy of your medical records, because downrange, if there's any uh, disability things that come up and you need to go to the VA, it's very helpful to have that documentation. Also, any tuition assistance, GI Bill, 9/11 type stuff. Very important that you know where you stand with all that eligibility as far as all that stuff's concerned. Once you're out, once I jumped ship and got on with American Airlines, I called them up. I got back home off of my deployment from the Middle East, actually on my birthday, February 9th. And I called American Airlines and I said, "Hey, I'm home." And they said, "Can you be here on the 15th of February?" And my wife at the time happened to be in the room and she was shaking her head. So I said no. But I started March 1st. They said, "Can you be here March 1st?" And that's when I started my career. Once you get out, there's a lot of things to consider. Another thing I gleaned from Captain Clark's message was, uh, you know, just take notes, be a good observer. And I always tell my mentees, talk less. You know, when you get somewhere and you don't know, you're not familiar with your surroundings, just listen. uh, be a good listener, talk less, kind of be a sponge and absorb all the information you can. And then, yeah, take notes so you can, at some point, maybe 30 days, 2 months downrange, say, "Hey, I got all this stuff I need to get answers to." And then you can collect your thoughts that you had written down on paper and try to get answers to all that stuff. Take all your leadership skills that you learn in the military. I think it's a lost art in this day and age. A lot of people know how to manage, but not many people know how to lead. You're either born with it or you're not, and or you don't have it. Uh, but take those leadership skills that you got as a career military person and use them. I was always trying to figure out a way I could stand out. If they wanted a class leader, if they needed somebody to run the study hall, if they had committees and they needed people to sit on committees, just try to figure out ways that you can continue to excel and be the best you can be every day. Bring that good attitude to the workspace. American Airlines was really good about training to proficiency. I never worried about whether or not I was going to make it through training because I knew I had a good attitude. And they would always say, "As long as you have a good attitude, we'll get you through. We'll train you." So it's important to bring a good attitude to the workspace. And this goes back to, you're going to bring that passion. If you do something that you're passionate about, you're going to bring that good attitude and that positive mental attitude with you to the workspace. Just always trying to be a better version of yourself every day. And that's for me kind of a lesson from my cancer battle, my cancer journey. Um, you know, just always try to do better. Always try to spread love and kindness, and just come to work with a good attitude and a crisp uniform and a nice shine pair of shoes, and make it look like you really want to be there, be a part of the team. Um, learn how to accept critiques. That is something that you should be used to in the military. It continues on in the civilian workspace. Um, but it's important not to be defensive about it. Just know that none of us are perfect. And there's certain ways that certain companies want to see you perform. And the best thing I could tell you is just have an open mind and be willing to accept criticism and critique and improve your performance the best way you can. Uh, and continue to set yourself apart. You know, I was always, it was important for me to make sure that whoever I was flying with, whatever captain I was flying with when I was a young first officer, I wanted them to, not that I did it for this reason, but I wanted them to recognize me as being very competent and one of the best first officers they ever flew with. I mean, I just, that was my mindset, just to do that. Um, you know, especially in your first year, you know, most companies have some type of probation. I would say, you know, cross your T's, dot your I's, you know, stay on track. But then a lot of people get comfortable after that 1 year probation period is up or 6 month probation period's up. Don't ever get comfortable. Don't ever get complacent. Uh, just keep sharp. You know, that's one thing. Again, maybe if you're in a job or a career where you're passionate about it, um, you know, you're always able to stay crisp and stay sharp and make sure that you're always trying to do the best that you can do, no matter what. Last piece of advice, and I would give you, and I'm not you know, big. I don't want to make it a, you know, a God thing or whatever, but I'm a pretty spiritual guy after going through what I went through, and you know, if you put it all in God's hands, at the end of the day, you're going to get three answers from Him. You're going to get a yes, a not now, or I have something else planned for you. And if you can take that and accept that and be able to can, you know, be dynamic, be fluid, go with the flow, you'll have a successful career. That's about it for my transition story. Um, Biscuit, if you want to open it up to some Q&A, I'm ready to take some questions.
Awesome. Thank you. So for the ROE, um, if you have a question, since we have a small group, um, I would just remind you that this is being recorded. So, you know, consider questions that you're asking and whether or not you're sharing any personal detail or information. Um, I would like to just kind of emphasize a couple of points that you made before opening up to questions, but the importance of the network, you know, having done this multiple times over the past 3 years, you know, there's some common themes, and the network is huge. You specifically detail how you benefited from it. I can also attest, you know, how influential Ernie was for me during my transition journey.
Mhm.
You know, if you would have asked me, hey, would you consider working for a nonprofit? I would have told you no, but here I am. So to the second point, the VA claim. For everybody here, working for a VSO, I can tell you that 0% is a rating. But if you don't apply,
Yeah.
you're not rated. And you are essentially leaving benefits on the table that you've earned as part of your service. So let me kind of pick on a couple folks. Don't take it personally, but I know that since I'm not, uh, I have a sense of where you are in your journey, or I don't know. Let me start with you, Chainsaw, you're up. And you kind of care to share if you have any questions for Elvis.
So one thing I've always been curious about, and I've talked to a lot of these guys, um, I mean, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And so, what advice would you give outside of the fire hose that taps? I've done that. And so, that's pretty, audacious when, they're just throwing stuff at you about, VA this, VA that, this program, that program, this program. What advice would you give to someone that's maybe looking to transition, but not really focused on, necessarily what they want to do? I mean, how did you necessarily find your focus, your niche, and what advice would you give to someone else? Over.
So let me make sure I understand your question. You're talking about the information that you gleaned from the transition assistance program from the TAP.
Yeah, I mean, when you go through that whole process, I mean, there's just so much information, and they give it to you in such a short period of time. And even, talking with Biscuit and some of the stuff that he shared, with me personally, I'm just like, man, this is a lot of stuff. And how do you really sift through all of that to get to the right answer of, hey, I want to move in this direction?
So I would say, like I don't know if you heard the comment about, when you're younger, you don't necessarily see yourself as being disabled or, something happening to you downrange. So one of the most important pieces is to make sure your medical record is intact. Make copies of your medical record. That way, if something happens, you can always go and file a claim with the VA with the sufficient documents to back up your claim. The other piece I would say is as you're transitioning, you're probably going to need some help with maybe education if you want to go to graduate school, if you want to, you know, go to some kind of tech school, whatever that might be. I would look into the different programs available to veterans for continuing education, whether that's the GI Bill, post 9/11 bill. Um, those are things that, like, I don't know where I missed it, but somehow when I joined the Navy, I missed the opportunity to sign up for a GI Bill. It's a big perk. I know a lot of people, especially if you have children, and you don't necessarily need the benefit, but you can pass it on to your children. Um, Also, I know that if you are disabled in the state of California, your kids can go to any state school, and I think that applies to a lot of states. So, uh, it's very specific to a particular family. What's important to your family, and I think just covering all your bases, potential disabilities or continuing education needs. At least those are two places that I would start.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback a little bit, um, you got not only federal, but depending on where you decide to live, you have state benefits that they're very generous with veterans and your children. So you want to consider that. But the medical piece, that's, if you ask me, that's the long pole in the tent. Everybody in this group will get a job. So it's not a matter of if, it's a when, and is it the right fit. So that would be maybe lower priority on the concern meter, but each individual, their situation is different. So Sierra, I'm not sure if you have anything queued up, but again, I wanted to make sure everybody gets a chance to ask the question. Over.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ciara Frederick. Um, I'm currently in flight school right now, and I saw this link to join, and I thought I should just pop on and hear what you guys had to say. Um, I was wondering, what are some suggestions that I should be mindful of during this this phase of my training and of my career. I've only been in for about 8 months so far, and I do want to reap as much as I can while I'm here and everything. So what are some suggestions that you guys have?
Where in your what stage of training are you in, Sierra?
I'm starting primary in a few months out of Milton.
Okay.
Hmm.
And your desire to is to fly what particular airframe? Do you have a choice, or you just want to fly?
I want to fly Strikers, sir.
Okay. Okay. So as a advisor to a young aviator just starting primary, uh gosh, there's a lot of advice I could give. But you know, the biggest thing I could say is you can't over prepare. Stay in the books. As a female and as a uh, Black female or minority in aviation, uh, even though it's 2026, you're going to be faced with challenges that you don't even know about when you show up. There's certain biases by people that they might just have a bias because of whatever. And so that's why I say you can never over prepare. Study, 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 armchair fly, um, get in the books, know your, if they still call it NATOPS, know your
Hmm.
NATOPS inside and out. Um, and also I think what helps is study in groups, because you can study yourself, but if you study in a group, somebody might have a question that the answer to, or vice versa, somebody might have an answer to a question that you may have. So um,
Right.
that would be my best advice. Stay engaged. Don't be a recluse. I've seen people try to go it alone. Seek help early. If you think you might be having a problem, go get help. Uh, a lot of times in naval aviation, if you're in it and you have a problem, by the time you go get help, sometimes it's too late. Have a mentor, have somebody you can lean on. Hey, I'm going through this particular phase of training. What should I expect? And that's, I don't know if you heard the networking, the strategic, operational, and tactical level of networking, but maybe have somebody there that you could be your mentor, but then have somebody at the strategic level, like somebody like me or Biscuit that has gone through it, that has a bird's eye view, so you can have an overall picture of what it is you're trying to accomplish and how the best way to accomplish it. But if you want to fly Strikers, you got to be the top of the top. So, and Biscuit could speak to that because he was a little bit higher than me in that pecking order.
Thank you, sir.
Sierra,
You're
I'd like
welcome.
to basically personally congratulate you for one, getting started, because a long time ago that was the thing to do, right? And but to Elvis's point, you can't get enough help. And certainly in this group, as well as in the band. I'm not sure if you're a member of the Black Aviators Network, but
Yes, sir.
yeah, there are people all over that, in some cases you have to turn the volume down because everybody wants to help. We got
Mhm.
Chainsaw right here. I'm not sure if you turned over yet, but he's probably got the tome of knowledge as far as who you need to talk to um, at this point. But certainly, I would say as soon as you raise your right hand, right, you need to be preparing your exit strategy, even if it's 3 decades later, because we're all going to leave the service. And if you leave sooner, the reserves, if you want to talk to that a little bit, Elvis, how life in the reserves and being able to retire um, from the Navy, with a split of active duty time and reserve.
So, um, obviously it would depend on your wants and needs, Sierra. I can tell you from as not continuing on to be a 20-year career aviator. Um, when I decided to get out, it was a little bit on the late stage as far as getting a flying job, and I'll kind of give you a little background on that. A lot of people that were getting out or knew they were getting out, uh, they would go back to the training command as an instructor. And if you did that, you were putting yourself in a great position to continue on in the reserves and the flying job. Um, I had passed that mark. I was department head getting ready to screen for XOCO. And so when I got out, there were no flying jobs available. And I wish I could tell you I loved my uh, reserve career, but I didn't. It was a lot of make work, a lot of staff positions, things that I really didn't enjoy doing, but didn't want to give up that reserve retirement. So I pushed on. But I would say if you were looking at potentially going to the commercial aviation route, then after your first tour, you want to try to look at going back as an instructor to set yourself up for the reserves. If you're considering a career and being like Biscuit and being a squadron commander, um, that's great too. But there's then there's certain checks in the block and things that you need to do in your career to make sure you're getting all those checks in the blocks. And Biscuit could probably speak a little bit better to that, but there's certain quals in the squadron you want to get. You want to be a standout in your squadron, and um, you know take on some tough positions in the squadron that will make you stand out, so you can continue on that track to be looked at and screened later on down in your career.
Okay.
Chainsaw, do you have anything you would add?
No, I mean, I think you guys covered it all. And Sierra is connected to a lot of folks in the band. And so, again, just keep your head down, stay in the books, study. And I can't emphasize enough, um, if you start having issues, reach out to people early. I don't care what it is. If it was just a bad flight, a pink slip, whatever, definitely reach out and start having those conversations with, your peers and those that are a little bit senior to you so that we can help. Um, I can tell you from personal experience, I've probably got 4 or 5 phone calls in the last year from, young student aviators when they were in trouble. And when I peel back the onion, they were well past the point of being saved, and so it was really nothing I could do. At that point, it was kind of like, hey, well, what do you want to do outside of naval aviation? Because this ain't gonna work anymore. Whereas, had they said something sooner, we could have reached in and kind of provided a little bit of help sooner and got them back on the path. So that's all I got. Thanks.
So, one question, and sorry, Ernie and Mike, for hogging up all the airtime. But so you were a SWO, and then you flew E2s, and then you flew S3s, ES3s. Can you speak to just because obviously you're going through training multiple times, getting more senior, but it seems like you wanted to kind of pursue that desired end state. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So when I reported to my E2 squadron in Japan on the Midway, um, flying E2s was, was a challenging aircraft to land on the carrier. But as a pilot, you weren't as involved in the mission as, as I would have liked to have been. And I say that because my last deployment, we spent 2 or 3 months from Japan, where we were based, heading over to the Persian Gulf for Desert Storm. And I mean, we spent hours, 8, 9, 10 hours a day planning strikes for that particular conflict. And to be honest, as an E2 pilot, I was really bored, other than the mission plan for the aircraft, being an aircraft commander. There wasn't a whole lot for me to do. So I looked to transition to the ES3 and S3 because I felt like I would be more involved in the mission of the aircraft as opposed to the naval flight officers in the back. And that's why I pursued that transition. I also actually, in the back of my mind, had a desire to go into the aviation engineering duty officer program. Mark Kelly and I were buddies out there on the Midway, and we were both landing signal officers. And I got a chance to fly some tanker missions with Mark Kelly out there. And as you guys probably know, he went on to the astronaut program. And I was interested in following his footsteps into that aviation engineering duty officer program as an astronaut. But one of the prerequisites was that you had to fly a jet engine. So that was all things that factored into my decision to transition to the S3 and the ES3. And I think the only reason, well, besides the multiple sea duties, I mean, I did 5 combat deployments in 14 years. So I was a little bit burnt out, but it was a great career. And, had I stayed in, I could have gone on to be an XO, a CO of a training command probably. But I had just kind of tapped out on being out at sea.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, we have a few minutes. Ernie, Mike, I'll give you guys a couple questions. Yes, sir.
Sure, I'd like to jump here. First, I want to thank you guys for all the kudos. Now you're just making me seem more senior than I feel sometimes. But Sierra, I got to give you kudos for chiming in on this one, because here you are at the beginning of your career, and you're coming over to a transition assistance talk tonight, But it's kind of like that. You're making a transition from civilian life to military life, and that's an important transition, And even better, that you're flying. A lot of things that Kevin said tonight is still going to be important for you. That part where he said, make sure you stand out. Well, I can tell you, because I used to say this a long time ago, you're standing out regardless. Who are they going to confuse you with, right? How many black female aviators are there in your class already? So you're going to stand out.
Zero.
So say again?
Only me.
There you go. Uh-oh. Anyway, so that's one right there. But the other thing he was saying about standing out is make sure you're doing a great job. And right now, where you are in the training command, learning your craft, that's the best thing you can do is to know your craft, because they can't take that away from you. People are always going to doubt you, and they look at you and go like, well, where'd you come from? How did you get in? And that's the talk now, no matter where you are. Okay. In aviation, it's even more so. So it's important to be able to have those things, and the things that you're gleaning out from the band chat and other things, keep them in the back of your mind. Well, I take that back. Put them in the front of your mind, because those are the things that you need to know that's going to help you survive and get from where you are to where you want to go. And that's going to be key. It's just important to do that. I can't tell you enough and so many times on what it's going to take to be able to do that. Some of the things that Kevin was saying was spot on. And like I said, at the beginning of your career, if you don't know those things, keeping track of your medical record. When you're younger, you feel like you're bulletproof. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to go to sick bay. I'm good. Maybe not. Right now you're doing great, but how about 5-10 years down the line? And talking about transition, when I joined the Navy, trust me, my plan was to stay 4 years. And I don't know how many folks on this chat can tell you how long they plan to stay, but I sure didn't plan to stay 23 years. Just 4 years, I'm out, I'm gone, you know. And as I continue to progress, I realized if some of these knuckleheads can be commanding officers, I know I stand a great chance of doing it. You know, that's the confidence and the things that you learn from being there. But for sure, you got to know your craft. You know, you have to be the resident expert. And like I said, you're going to stand out no matter where you are. So if you stand out, you want to make sure you're standing out for the good things that you do, you know, and the good things that you realize. And talk early, raise your hand, ask those questions in the band. You got folks here on the screen here, call them up, ask them the questions. You know, you can find us. We're not going to be disappearing too long. Ask the question in the band. They can get a hold of almost everybody that's on here now. Mike, did you have anything? I'm just, you know, going. Once you get me talking, I can talk forever. So we're running out of time, so I won't do it.
Oh yeah, earlier I was listening to some things you were saying. Uh, I happen to be one of the guys who had over 40 years. I had 43 years. Matter of fact, active in reserve, enlisted and commissioned. And so I enlisted in 1973 at age 18. 1 year after Kitty Hawk had a race ride while out to sea. And so the Navy has undergone a massive transitional period. But there again, we're still fighting the same battles we had to fight 50 years ago. My career spans over 5 decades. But what's important to the young lady is that, okay, only two people get noticed, the outstanders and the screw ups. Okay, make sure you're one of the outstanders. All right. You need to manage your career. Don't let the Navy promote you. You promote you. But you got to do things that they can identify you as being excellent. Don't sit around and think they're gonna select you, promote you. You got to do that yourself. That means you got to take control of your career, and you got to be aggressive in managing your career. One other thing, when the gentleman talked about VA, I retired from the VA. I had 33 years at the VA as a provider. Also, I was a provider in the Navy as well. One of the biggest things I was seeing when guys were transitioning from active duty to the VA, medical records were missing documentation. When we were seeing patients in the hospital and they were alleging certain things, trying to file claims, the documentation wasn't there, and the VA, they were always skeptical of the claims they were making. Document everything. If you pull a muscle, document it. You get injured, document it. You have a fever, document it, because they can go back and look at their documentation years in retrospectively, and that may support your claim as being approved or not approved. Zero compensation is still service connected. You're just not getting any compensation with it. So too many guys try to go back and try to find somebody who can sign an affidavit saying, yeah, I was there, I saw him, got injured, so forth and so on. But that's one of the things from a medical standpoint that I wanted to make sure that people knew. Another thing, do not be in a hurry to get out of the Navy. If you were injured, let them board you out. They try to run you off to the VA representative on base, because if you go to the VA first, you can't go to the military to file a claim for med board. Some of you already filed a claim with the VA on. Let the Navy board you out first, then go to the VA and file a claim. They try to do it just the opposite now. Anyway, it's about 1900. I know that it's time to go, but those are a few things I like to share. You have this is a trying time in the Navy because of this what we're on now. The Secretary of the Navy just got fired because the war in the Gulf is being screwed by someone who's not qualified. They're going to try to cast doubt on everybody who don't look like them. So, so keep your eyes open and ears open as well, okay, and learn and have a plan about what you're going to do, and reach out to the guys at NNOA. These guys been around for a while. They can sort of give you some pointers or advice. With that, I'll turn it back over to the moderator.